Hey guys, Target here and welcome to another episode of Design and Manage, a City Skylines and Modded Let's Play series. In this episode we will develop and continue to expand our city by developing the area that is right next to the university, at the coastal area of the left side of the map. So I've started out by figuring out the highway connections and also adjusting the road layout. I ended up adding another layer to the block, and I've also created a bridge that will lead people to the other side of the river. So this is going to be a secondary access point to the other margin. I've then started to develop a pathway network. I wanted to turn the entire coastal area into a park. I usually fence off my entire park areas, especially when it's such a big park such as this one. However, this time I decided to do something different and I left it completely open, so people have different accesses to the park, so they don't have to go through the main entrances, and theoretically they don't have to pay a ticket price to get in. The reason I've done this is that we are going to have elections later on this year, and I need to give people a reason to vote for me again as their mayor. So it's good to pamper them once in a while. Also, most of you guys seem to like the visual enhancements that I've made on the last video, so I'm going to keep them. I've got some comments that the LUT was a bit darker, so I've made some adjustments for this particular video, and hopefully now is much better. I ended up deciding to place a pathway that would go alongside the coast of the river, and in that pathway I would place some piers, some fishing piers, and also some plazas and also some coffee shops. This involved a little bit of terraforming, but not that much, and I think the final result ended up very well. I've also mixed in some buildings from the Nature Reserve Park area, namely the fishing piers and also the watchtowers. One cool thing about the game is that you can place assets from other park areas into very different park areas as long as you have unlocked them already, which I definitely have, as we have a level 5 Nature Reserve Park area already. So that's what I ended up doing. I think it complements the area a lot better. And I've made developments in two major areas. The first one is the area to the right side of the bridge, and then I've made another development area right next to the highway, or right at the location where the highway crosses to the other margin. After defining the main structure of the coastal park area, I've then started developing the layout itself. I've started by placing a golf course, and I've done it on the left area of the map because this is the area where I'm going to place all the sport buildings from the university, the varsity sports assets. So I think it was an adequate location for this asset, and I've then proceeded to zone the entire area. One thing that I'm doing different here is that I'm mixing a different density of buildings. So I'm placing a lot more low density buildings and I'm mixing in some high density. Commercial and office next to the avenue and residential in the less accessible areas as usual. And in some particular locations I'm also leaving some gaps between the buildings. So I'm not zoning every single square. And the reason I'm doing this is that when I have developed the central highway that you saw me do in the last video, I kind of applied this technique and I really enjoy the end result. I think having these larger gaps between the buildings give a much breathable space, and aesthetically it looks better. The downside is that you cannot have as much higher population concentrated in one particular location, but I'm willing to give that up for a much aesthetically pleasing scenario. As you will see in the end result of this time-lapse, this particular area that we are developing looks much better than the old part of the city, the part that we have zoned earlier in the previous episodes. I even think in the future I'm going back to that area of the city where I have all that big mass of buildings, and I'm going to remodel it and place some low density buildings mixed in with high density, and I'm also going to leave a few blocks or a few gaps to put in a bit more trees. I think it looks great, because I was particularly satisfied with the end result of the development that we have made on this video in this part of the city. When I unpaused the simulation, I then had to rework the highway access because I noticed a lot of traffic. But I also think that's because I've zoned a lot of residential and I had a lot of people moving in at the same time. So I don't think that's a matter to worry about, at least at this stage. I've then also placed a hospital. This is the first hospital of the city, and because it's such an imposing building, I decided to give it its own block that I've later on decorated and also put some crematoriums just for fits. I've also worked on the area services, namely education, police and fire support, and also leisure, because even though the park area that we have just built is very big and very significant, it's not enough to provide leisure to the area that is the furthest away from it. So I've also had to place a few plazas and also some playgrounds. And then when I was done with it, I've just decorated everything with trees. For tree placement, I've just used my regular technique. I like to mix in different types of trees, and I like to place them in small clusters. Here I'm using the oak trees and also the conifers, and I'm also placing some tall vegetation. For the park area itself, I wanted to do something special, something that would make the park stand out from a distance, and because of that I've used some purple trees that come with the base game, which I think gave it a little bit more character than the normal areas of the city. But yeah guys, that's pretty much it. As I am finishing up decorating this entire thing, I'm also going to work on the public transport of this area. We need to provide it with a metro connection and perhaps some bus routes as well. And I also think with this new population boost we can develop our university a bit further. So enjoy the rest of the time lapse and I'll meet you guys in a moment to work on these things. I'll see you then. Okay guys, so the coastal area is now complete. I hope you have enjoyed the time-lapse, and now this thing looks like paradise. I'm really satisfied with the way it turned out to be. Now there are some things that I want to do, some things that I haven't addressed in the time-lapse. First and foremost is of course the public transportation. I need to provide a metro connection to this entire thing, or at least connect it to the existing metro network. A lot of people said that I've forgotten to place a metro station at the university. I did not forget, please do not be impatient. I just figured out that would be something that I wanted to do when I developed this area, which is exactly what we have done in this episode. So right now I want to figure out where I want to place my metro stations. I think I'm gonna make a secondary line that connects directly to the public transport hub and will come right about over here and feed this entire avenue. And eventually at this intersection, this avenue intersection, it will connect with this metro station as well. So perhaps we can put a couple of these things here. So let's address it right away. I want to figure out where I want my metro stations to be, and I think I'm gonna place one first and foremost right next to this junction, perhaps right next to the park itself, or perhaps over here. Maybe this is a better place for it. There we go. And now I think I want to place another one right about here. So let's place it here. Now let's dezone these buildings. And let's continue. And I think I will want to have the intersection at about this junction. Unfortunately, the base game does not have an intersection metro station, which is kind of disappointing. You would figure it out by this time they would make something like that. But that's not the case, so we will actually have to place 2 of these. So I think, okay, so we have one of the metro connections here. I think we can continue the pattern and connect it at about this area. Okay, now we just need to connect it back. And now place another metro station, and I think I want to place it right next to the other one. So right across the street. And this should be it. Left to delete a commercial building, but that's no big deal. And now we just have to connect everything. I'm gonna pause the simulation right now because I'm about to do some major damage. So I want to make a line here. I want to bring this all the way here. I'm gonna need to make a little curve in order to make a smooth transition. So perhaps something like this. And now we just need to connect everything with the existing network, and hopefully metros will not slow down when going through this junction. And make the same thing here. And now we can connect everything to this little line. They will actually need to go down by about 3 blocks, I believe. I think that's the minimum distance, so let's go by 3. Let's do the same thing here. So 1, 2, 3. Let's just make an auxiliary guideline. And this will give us the option of having this little guideline here. So we know that we want to align it with this. And now we can make a very smooth curve. And I think this is smooth enough. And we can connect it. Okay, delete it and connect both ends of the station. Kinda like this. Okay. And now we just need to connect this little line. And we will be okay. And I don't know, perhaps I could connect it like this, or I could even connect it above ground. So let's see how well will this look. Actually, let me try to do this in another way. Let's bring it all over here. Connect it, and let's do the same here. Let's replicate the same design. So everything is symmetrical. Okay, beautiful. And now we should just connect it. Okay, I think this is good enough, at least for the time being. Now we should just make a few lines. So I think I'll need to bring this stop to this station here and reconnect everything here. And now I need to make a secondary line that will bring people to this entire location. And I think this is going to be it. Okay, another here and another one there. Now I believe we can safely resume the simulation. And people will now start using these lines. Let me see if this metro line actually adjusts. And yeah, there we go, perfect. Now I just want to provide a easier way for people to transition from one metro station to the other without crossing the road. You guys know that's how I roll with elevated pathways. It seems that the majority of people continues to use this walkway because it's a much shorter distance between stations, but for the sake of walkability and also because there's a lot of people using this elevated pathway, I think we can keep it. Alright guys, I think that's going to be it for the metros. Regarding bus lines, I don't think I will be placing any, at least not at this point. Because all the houses here at this coastal area are at a walking distance from the metro station, so for the time being I am not going to place any bus lines. And I'm just gonna see how things work out. What I want to do, however, is place some of these taxi stands because in the previous video, when we decorated this entire central highway network, we have placed the taxi depot. I don't know if you noticed in the very fast-paced time-lapse, but here it is. And with that, now we can place some taxi stands. And I'll definitely want to place one right next to the hospital. I think it makes sense to have one here. And I think I'm gonna place it right about here, and that's going to be a bummer because it's gonna involve deleting the tree work that I've been doing. But let's check it out. How will it look if I put it here instead? Is it too close to the lettering? Well, maybe not. I think that's actually a good place for it. Let's put a second one right about here, just for the sake of symmetry, and that should be okay. I also want to put another one at our university, because we kinda have the need for it. Public transport to the university, it's something that is actually missing. So I think I'm gonna place a taxi stand right over here, right in the middle, in front of one of the dormitories. Speaking of university, by adding all of these houses here, it actually bumped our population, and we now have enough students to go to the next level, and all we're missing is the attractiveness of the campus. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to go back to our university and start reworking on this area, develop it a bit more. Let's see, how many buildings do we have that we haven't placed yet? We have this gymnasium over here, and we also have a cafeteria. Don't worry, this is only temporary locations. I just want to see how much it affected the attractiveness, so we need a couple more buildings. And I think this is actually a good opportunity for us to start using the varsity sports buildings. These are sport buildings that are very big and occupy a large portion of area and can be placed anywhere inside your city, but if you place them inside your university, it increases the attractiveness of the campus and also gives your university its own sports team. So I need to figure out which one I want to place. I definitely will not place all of them because I don't have the room for it, and also because I think it's not really necessary. I think I actually want to go for the track and field stadium to start things off, and I want to put it right about in a parallel line to this little avenue. So I think I want to make a road at about over here. Let's see if this is good enough. I think it's actually just right. So let's actually try and make another road here and try to center it. So this is the perfect place for it. And let us see how it looks. I think it looks quite good actually. It occupies quite a huge portion, geographic location, but I think it's going to be fine. And with this, the attractiveness of the campus has got to 455, and at the end of the school year we will probably go up a level. So what I want to do now is connect these little roads. For the time being, I'm just going to make a very simple connection, kinda like this. Okay, now let's upgrade everything with a road with grass lanes. And make a few extra connections. Perhaps we can even, for the time being, round the corners, because I still don't know what other buildings I'm gonna place. So let's just make some little curves here to make things a bit more aesthetically pleasing. Kinda like this. And there we go. Okay, cool. Now I just wanna relocate these buildings. I think I wanna put the cafeteria right next to the study hall. I think these buildings should be close together so students can grab something to eat while they are studying. As for the gymnasium, it should probably be closer to the sports area of the city, or the campus, should I say. So perhaps this is actually a good place for it. Let's place it here. Let's connect everything with water. That's the thing that we are missing. Okay, so another thing that I think I want to do is actually grab this taxi stand and put it right about in this location, because I think this area is the area that is going to have the biggest flux of people, because this is where all the main attractions of the university are going to be. And finally, to wrap up the public transport area of the university, the only thing that we're missing is a bus route that connects this thing to the metro, because we put this metro over here, but even with this connection, people still have to walk a long distance to get to the actual building. So I want to grab this tool and actually make a bus route that starts at about here, I believe. Okay, and it's going to connect to every single building within the university. Okay, and now come back. Unfortunately, this is kind of messed up, so I think we're gonna have to change this stop. And I think we need to change a few of the stops as well. Another thing that I want to do is actually create another road at about here, just so that the buses can have a short path and don't have to come through this entire roundabout. I think like this is much more accessible. And perhaps we can even make an additional stop right at the park entrance, just to provide another connection. And now I think I want to make another line that will connect to both of these metro stations. So I think I'm gonna make a stop here, then connect it to the dormitories, perhaps another stop here, and now let's bring it back. Okay, and this dead end actually served the purpose. I'm glad about that, and we can actually make another stop here. And now people can simply catch the metro in whatever part of the city they are, reach this area here, then they can grab the bus and go and reach university like this. If the bus lines get too crowded, I simply rework the metro line and I put a metro station inside university itself. It's no big deal. Another thing that I want to do, because we have such a big amount of parks in the city, and it's actually something that most of you have already suggested, or at least some of you, is place this thing, the park maintenance building. I think for an upkeep of 160 per week, we can get a boost to our attractiveness levels inside the parks. So that's what I'm gonna do. I wanna place one right here. That's going to delete the power line, but that's okay. And this is actually a good location for it. I think it looks good. Actually, let me scoot it over a bit to the left to avoid this weird slope. Okay. And I think I will also want to put another one at about here, because we have the room for it. So I even think I am going to delete this little road and I'm going to place it right about here, right next to our nature reserve park. And look at this, guys, look at the amount of people using our elevated pathway. And this is definitely something that we did not account for, so we've just had our first match and we won, of course. But now we have a lot of cars trying to get out of here, and they are using this little route. I really don't want this. I want people to use the main avenue and leave at about this junction. So I think I will have no choice but to delete this road. But before deleting, I want to see how traffic behaves if I just disable it. And to disable, I can just convert it to a one-way road, because I have two one-way roads converting into the central point. This road is now unusable, and I want to see how these cars are going to get out of this area. I think they will have no choice but to use this roundabout. Yeah, there we go, they're coming back and they're coming at about here. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for today. Great progress in this video. On the next episode, perhaps we can keep focusing in this area and develop the other side of the avenue, just for another population boost. We have just unlocked another tile, so another thing that we can do is actually start working on the fishing industry. That's also another plausible option. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Have a good one, and as always, have fun!